All right, welcome to Eugene, Oregon. CITIUS MAG live in Eugene. I'm Chris Chavez, joined by my colleague here, Eric Jenkins. Jenkins just had Good Morning Track and Field, the debut. How'd you feel it went?
Show number one, I thought went great, and I think
Vibes are high?
Only gets better from here.
So we're here for the next 10 days. New Balance has been so great in carving out this space for us. New Balance celebrates runners of all levels and styles. They believe that there's no single right way to run, just your way. If you run, no matter the distance, no matter the pace or frequency, you're a runner. New Balance, run your way.
That's exactly what I was saying on this morning's show.
It's your Pledge of Allegiance.
It's my Pledge of Allegiance.
Awesome. So what we heard from all of our supporters and followers is that you guys seem to love these interview shows that we do. We kicked this off at the World Championships in 2022. We ran it back at the 2023 World Championships in Budapest. Just tapping in with the athletes, the coaches, any notable VIPs who are in town. No guest is too big or too small to be on the CITIUS MAG set. We've had everyone from the likes of Shelly Ann Fraser-Price, Michael Johnson, gold medalist, world record holders. So I'm excited for the next 10 days as we get to kick back with some of these athletes. And one of the staples that we've had on the first day of each one of these championships is that we get a little bit of like a State of the Union address from the USATF President, also the Director of Track and Field and Cross Country at the University of Virginia. So we're going to kick things off with our regular Vin Lananna. Vin, come on up.
All right.
We'll have you sit over here. Scoot over.
Eric, what's going on?
Hey, great to see you.
Great to see you.
You are high up here.
I know. We've come a little bit of a long way since our backyard show 2 years ago.
I like the backyard.
Yeah, the backyard
like
was cozy. I mean, we got to always remember our humble beginnings. Yeah.
Exactly.
So here, wearing many hats, obviously USATF President, Coach. Like your schedule must be just jam-packed.
Not really. I actually can prioritize my schedule. And, first couple of days are really paying attention to our athletes, and then the USA track and field stuff.
Yeah. So you're coming off of the NCAA championships. We had a great showing by the UVA Cavaliers, highlighted, of course, by Shane Cohen's big victory. Were you going nuts in the stands? How was that for you?
Well, I think everybody who knows me know that is not the way I would have scripted the way he runs. But when we got to the ACCs and he started really delivering on that, I just said, hey, just do what you're doing, and it's working. So I thought it was a good possibility, actually, the way he runs. But hey, you gotta stay out of trouble and gotta hit the gas in that last 100 meters.
So I did a podcast interview with him, and he was fantastic. Just kind of telling his story of just, from the Tampa days all the way to getting, the call from Trevor and you. So I want to hear from your side of things. What stood out to you when this kid from Division II, what was the untapped potential that you saw in him that, led to the call and the offer to give him a spot on UVA's team?
It's really pretty routine, and typically what happens is Trevor Dunbar, who is my assistant and really does a wonderful job. He does the initial contacts, and if he thinks I'll like the kid, I make the call, and he was absolutely right. I thought he was, not just his running, but his attitude about competition, his confidence, and yes, it's grounded in humility. And from the first day I talked to him, I really liked him. I didn't like him when he was running 154s, though.
No one likes you when you're running 154.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I liked him as a person. I wasn't so sure about his running. But then when he arrived at UVA, he's just got a great positive attitude. And the other student athletes on the team really like him, so it's good. It's all great. And we followed him all year. He had, as he probably told you, he was injured, but he had run well his previous year. But he was injured last year with a stress fracture of his femur, and but he came back nicely. Started to run pretty well at the end of the season, but season ended. Arrived at UVA, and he probably didn't tell you, he was the alternate on our distance medley for the NCAAs. Did he tell you that?
No, he didn't tell me that.
So he's come a long way.
Yeah.
As the alternate he reminds me of that every day, of how he was the alternate, and now he's the NCAA champion.
I'm just thinking, because you famously found and recruited Andrew Weeding out of high school. Was there something that stood out with Shane? I mean, we're talking about was a guy who was running 154s. I mean, does he just, when you see him, does he strike you as someone who is a really good racer and has a lot of potential? Because you clearly have a good eye for developing these really good 800-meter runners.
Well, I think if I'm going to be completely honest, with Andrew, it was Jeff Johnson who turned me on to him, and then with Shane, it was really Shane's actually marketing and branding. I mean, he's really good. I mean, he's just the right amount of confidence, and he's got big expectations, and then he comes out and he delivers it. So I'm more in these last bunch of years that I'm going to be coaching. I'm only coaching kids I like. So that's how it's happening.
You've obviously done this at numerous schools now, but just sort of building that team like chemistry and that team culture, it takes a while. What is clicking so well? Because it's not just Shane. You've got Gary, you've got Connor. Like, they're all clicking at the right time right now.
Well, I think it all comes down to you have to have talent,
mm-hmm.
and I think the attitude of the guys on the team, men and women, it's really quite positive. And you get down, it's nurturing. It's almost like having a training group, a professional training group. Pretty well. If you get people together and they've all have a common goal and there's great camaraderie, big things can happen, and that's what's going on at UVA right now.
What's it like to come back to Eugene, a place that has been home for you for many years? You were pretty instrumental in getting it to be where it's at today. It must be kind of emotional and really fun at the same time for you coming back.
Well, when I was driving over here today, and I should know the area pretty well. I harkened back on when we were in Budapest and you guys were lost on the subway.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? And I thought, driving around through town, and I'm thinking, okay, London, Paris, Budapest, Eugene, Oregon.
Yeah.
And to come back here and be in a community that embraces the sport like none other, it's exciting, it's exhilarating. I love the look on the kids' faces when they arrive and they look at the stadium. I mean, Phil and Penny Knight created something that is really special, and it is nothing else like it. And so it's exciting for me to actually have played a role in what Tracktown is. But Tracktown has always been what it is. Now it's really elevated.
It feels like 2021 and 2022, we were still kind of coming off of the pandemic kind of return to full sports, full scale, just sort of like these big, grand, events where, filling the stands was hard. And then I think this most recent pre-classic, we just saw kind of like the potential of what we used to see at the old Hayward, where it was, loud for every one of the sessions. I'm pretty optimistic about these trials and the potential turnout we might have with the fans.
Yeah, I don't know what the numbers project to be, but I can say this, that if you follow track and field, or even if you casually follow track and field and travel and track sport, forget the track and field, but just the sport itself. I mean, you get the greatest athletes in the world, and you've got Paris coming up. There's 1, 2, 3, and go. I mean, what more drama could you have in any athletic event? And if there's no better place in the world to have a track meet than Eugene, Oregon.
Yeah. So looking at these trials, like, they're coming at a very interesting time where we're starting to see just sort of like all these new initiatives popping up within the sport. What do you think was the lasting impact of, everyone seemed to believe that like the 2022 World Championships were going to be this big catalyst for track and field in America. Didn't pop exactly as big as we maybe had hoped. And now it's sort of just like, okay, we are recognizing, is it just the feeling of an Olympic year that like track seems to be having a little bit more of a moment right now?
Well, I hope it's more than just every 4 years.
Yeah.
And it's always been the issue in the U.S. is the excitement for the Olympic Games is something which energizes the track community. But I hope that with a lot of these, I call them disruptions,
that
are coming about are actually, I hope, creating a buzz, creating a catalyst, and giving us the potential to be a springboard for what I believe, I think all of you have heard me say, the greatest sport in the world. And I think that doing something here, letting the Olympic trials go, you guys that are doing these interviews and getting people on board, they're all part And if everybody kind of gets together, I think we can really do something really special for the sport, and that's really what I hope to do.
Yeah, we can have some fun here because it's like they took Kyle away from us. MJ scooped up Kyle, so he's got like some pretty good people in his corner, just kind of guys who know the sport, and then also they're bringing in people from all other industry areas, people from the NFL, from Red Bull, Formula One, just to kind of pull from what it takes to stage grand scale sporting events. And so, what were your sort of first impressions when they announced Grand Slam track? As someone who is the Tracktown Summer Series was something that you threw yourself behind for a bit, and it didn't exactly pan out to be a big like major league thing. But what advice, if anything, do you have for it's like good luck, right? Like it's hard to undertake. Like I'm going to popularize track and field in America.
Yeah, well, I think the initiative is. I think you have the biggest. You have kind of the greatest asset in your corner, and that will be our athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing is better than our athletes, and I think that if you could get people energized around it, Michael and his crew, I think will be a great job. You did lose a good guy in Kyle, but I do think that I'm hopeful that they're going to be able to get others behind it, and I think it's all right now is probably the most. I don't think we've ever been at this kind of inflection point, because if you look at what's going on with the NCAA and the greatest feeder system that any federation in the world has, and we have to really join together and come up with something that is exciting, that is energizing, that is optimistic, and I'm not sure that there is anything better than the NCAA.
Yeah.
And I hope that whenever these initiatives come up, I hope that we're all looking at the athletes, and it's not just the American athletes; it's the international athletes who are all doing great at the U.S. university system. So I'm excited. I'm optimistic. I hope Michael gets this thing done. He's a known quantity and a respected name, so I hope it works.
Yeah. When Eric and I were kind of like pouring over just sort of like the actual details of it, you wear various hats, so like you can tell us how do you feel about a 3K, 5K, 2 days apart? If it was one of your athletes, just sort of that's one of the challenges I think that a lot of the coaches are kind of hung up on right now, is just sort of like, how am I going to make this work? For the athlete, they're looking at it as like, that's a huge payday. How do I pass on that? But like the priority still seems to be the way the contracts are built out, the way coaches approach the season. The priority is still World Championships and Olympics. So do you have to reframe anything in your head too, as to like, how do I let my athlete do a 3K, 5K on within 3 days?
I think that question is better posed to the actual athletes.
Yeah.
Because I'm so tired of listening to people who don't do it.
Yeah.
Offer an opinion and give all the reasons why you can't do something. I'm a can-do guy, and I believe that you have to think differently. We could think about the same thing we always think about, and we could say exactly where we are. Or we can actually look ahead, and if I don't have any opinion at all about 3K, 5K, but I think if the athletes do, and I told you guys last time, I think the people who should be offering experience, opinions, and valid opinions are the athletes who are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they provide for you, whether they can run the 3 and the 5, and or whatever it is, prelims. Everybody talked about, athletes can never double in a 5K and a 10K. Yet all of them double in a 5K and a 10K. So somehow we missed what the coaches think and what the athletes think. I don't know if they're always the same.
Yeah.
You've got a little bit of skin in the game in the 800 this trials. Is there any other races you're really looking forward to? Anything that you're excited to watch?
I'm excited to watch every single event, whether it's the shot put or whether it's the long jump or the decathlon or the heptathlon. UVA, we have athletes in the men's 1500, the steeplechase and the discus and the shot put, and not the shot put, the discus and the 400 hurdles. So I'll have a special interest in those events, but I have them in every single event. They're all great at the trials.
Yeah. All right, so 1500 first rounds today. We got some news this morning. Centro's out. As a guy who saw him from the very beginning, what have you sort of made of his entire career? We were talking about it just sort of this morning. It's like, no, it's so hard to think of like how a future 1500 meter runner is going to try and replicate that greatness over the span of a decade. Nowadays, with just like how quickly, how fast these races are getting, the longevity of these athletes. And so Centra was a special talent. What do you remember kind of like the early days?
Well, it's pretty simple. I would work backwards. I start with gold medal. I talk about the number of years that were between gold medals. And I think Matthew Centrowitz was a young guy who I visited on a recruiting trip. And it's actually, this is what I remember most about him.
Yeah, tell us the story.
All right. I had talked to Matthew on July 1st, and I said, hey, I'm going to come and visit you. He was like, yeah, great. I knew his dad and his mom. So I was in New York, and he lives in Baltimore area, and I was out going for a little jog, and I tripped, and I killed my hamstring. I was down. I had to hitchhike home. Not
how you want to run.
No. And I went face first, and I got up, hitchhiked, and I still had to go see Matthew that same day. So I flew from New York to Baltimore, and the Southwest Terminal couldn't have been further away from where I was trying to get my car. And then I got this car, and I had the seat so far back because I couldn't even move. And I got to his house. He had 4 steps that I had to go up. And I dragged myself into the house, go in, and then you have to go downstairs to get to his living room. And I was hobbling around. My hamstring was so black and blue. And but Matthew came, so it was well worth the whole thing. And then he had asked me, we have some food up the stairs. I was like, no chance I'm going up those stairs. So that's my view of it, Matthew.
You're like, I almost wanted you to just meet me out on the front lawn.
But then I think he told me that I was the only one who visited him. And I told him this whole sob story of how I dragged myself here and my hamstring was killing me. And
I had to hitchhike
really
to get to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was
well worth it.
When I saw him win the gold medal and all the other things he did, Matthew is just great for the sport. Maybe in the last couple of decades, maybe one of the best ones.
Yeah.
What else has got you excited, kind of the state of track and field in America right now? You mentioned the NCAA being like this huge, potential. It's a feeder system for the rest of the world as well as, the United States. But, it's a mini world championships anytime there's a NCAA championships. If someone, I guess, on the marketing side of it, what do you think could be done better to prop up the NCAA stars, to set them up for potentially lucrative professional careers and earn that spotlight?
Yeah, well, I think it's all about 2 things. Is creating value for the sport, just as any brand tries to do. You're creating value, and then you have to expose that value. So I think that the more we can present our sport in an exciting, young, enthusiastic, innovative way, the more we're going to get people engaged in it. So all the things that we have here, you have to look at it. To me, it's a continuum. And you look at the youth, you look at high schools, you look at colleges, and you look at the professional side of the sport. And I think for too long, we have just taken some of that stuff for granted. So what I'm most excited about is the initiatives that are taking place with youth. I think Sam Seams has done a marvelous job with the Coaches Association and the Hall of Fame. I'm really heading up this initiative to try to get USA Track and Field and the Coaches Association to work more closely together, because I'm looking at all of the things that are going on with the NCAA, and we have all the doom and gloom. I refuse to look at it that way. I'm looking at the cup being half full, and I see the changes in the NCAA as being very positive for our sport, but it isn't going to happen just by itself. I mean, we have to join together as an entire track and field community and protect. To me, the NCAA institutions invest, all of them, $1 billion in the sport of track and field with a B. And if we have to be sure we protect that investment if we're going to really get the sport going. So I'm excited about getting the coaches together and hoping everybody's going to get on close to the same page.
Is that the same coaches meeting where we have to put in our little complaint about, like, the NCAA Indoor Championships in Boston were, I thought, a little kind of, it wasn't loud. Like, I wanted music, some entrances. Like, is that the meeting we have to attend to just be like, hey guys, like, how do we spice this up a little bit? Because, you know, the high schoolers were in there a couple days later and it was electric. Is that just the coaches being like, I want to speak to my athletes and I want them to be able to hear?
I don't think so. I think it's probably, this coach would.
Yeah, you're not trying to talk.
I don't care about that. I think that people like this group, your group, as you know, and I'm not saying this to blow smoke, I think that your initiative, the excitement that you bring is something that can electrify it.
Right.
And I think Sam Seams, Jeff Malinsky, I'll call out Jeff right now. I think that Jeff and the committee will embrace it. I mean, somebody just needs to present it.
Yeah.
Do it this week.
Yeah. All right. We'll do it. Vin, I guess over the next couple days, with these athletes that you've got competing, like, what is the last sort of like piece of wisdom, advice? Like, is it just sort of business as usual? How do you treat an Olympic trials when it comes to getting your athletes ready in the proper mindset to, you know, hit the track for a chance to make the Olympic team?
Yeah, well, I think it's, you know, when you're looking at making the Olympic team, you only make the Olympic team if you get through each round. So we're taking each round as it comes, and you know, there'll be a strategy that is a continuum of what they've been doing all season, whether it's the ACC or the regional meet or the NCAA. It's a long season, but it's the same thing they've been doing. So they'll get through each round, and then if they get to the finals, which I sure hope they will, they'll be able to execute. Their excitement should carry them down the final straightaway.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to it. And Vin, we always appreciate you making your annual trip onto our set, giving us a kind of a temperature check on the state of the sport here in the United States. And so thank you. And also, thank you for the award that you gave me. Like, I totally, this is the first time I'm seeing you since I received it in the mail, but 2023 USATF President's Award winner, all thanks to this guy. I appreciate it.
Well deserved, and I think the whole, not just you, but the whole initiative
team,
that you guys do, the team does a great job. So I typically don't do these things, but I do like to do it with you guys.
Of course, anytime, Ben. Well, we appreciate you coming by. Grab yourself an ice cream. We're giving free ice cream to all of our guests. Keep yourself cool and enjoy the races.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. All right, we'll be back in a little bit with our next guest. Thanks.